Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the NADSP's Inside the Revised NADSP Code of Ethics webinar. This is a really big day for us, and we're very happy to introduce the revised version of our Code of Ethics. With me today are my colleagues, John Raphael, the Director of Educational Services at NADSP,
Hi, everybody.
and Dan Hermrich, our Chief Innovation Officer. Dan, welcome.
Hello.
And I'm Joe Macbeth. I'm the president and CEO of the NADSP. For those of you who may not be familiar with who we are the only national organization whose sole purpose and sole mission is to elevate the status of the direct support workforce. And of course, we do this in a variety of ways. We try to improve practice standards and do policy work and to promote system reform changes. And of course, advancing the direct support workforce's knowledge, skills, and values. And today we're going to be focusing on values. That's really what the Code of Ethics is all about. Of course, we always talk about quality at the NADSP, and in our estimation, quality means how do we help people with disabilities achieve outcomes? Outcomes, big things and small things. And one of our founders, John F. Kennedy Jr., in 1996, in the report to the president, wrote that quality is defined at the point of interaction between a staff member and a person with a disability. And when you take a look at these outcomes and you kind of deconstruct them, you will often find direct support professionals doing their work, helping people achieve, meaningful things in their lives, like finding competitive and integrated employment, purchasing their own homes, building trusting relationships, romantic relationships, but also the small things like helping people prepare a meal or balance a checkbook or select appropriate clothing for the day. They're all outcomes, and we don't judge those outcomes, but we also know that outcomes and quality doesn't happen by accident. Quality is always the result of high intention and skillful execution on behalf of the direct support professional. And when we come to that quality, we know that quality is the confluence of knowledge, skills, and values. The training that our direct support professionals receive needs to be based on evidence and sound research. It needs to be dynamic. It needs to be competency based. It needs to be changing all the time. And then the skills are those competency areas. And we in our eBadge Academy, we use the CMS core competencies. And these are portable and they are universal and they are practiced everywhere, whether DSPs know it or not. They're implementing these skills. Values is a whole different set of the missing piece of that puzzle. And we want for direct support professionals to be ethical and adopt the values of their profession. We all have our own personal values. We all have our own personal beliefs, and that's human nature. But we want direct support professionals, when they're working with people and when they're representing their profession, to adopt the NADSP's Code of Ethics. John, I'm going to pass it over to you for a moment.
Thanks, Joe. This is a picture of that definition that Joe just mentioned a couple minutes ago that came from John F. Kennedy Jr. Quality is defined at the point of interaction between the staff member and the individual with a disability. Well, here is a visual of that. This happens to be a photograph of a direct support professional and a gentleman that he supports. The direct support professional happens to be, his name is Nick Smith. He gives us full permission, as well as Anthony, the person in this picture, gives us full permission to use this photograph. Nick Smith also is not only a direct support professional, he serves on the NADSP Board of Directors currently. But the reason we're putting this picture up is that question that's up there. What do direct support professionals bring to work? What does Nick bring to work? Well, I'm going to cut to the chase. Nick brings himself. And direct support, I think, as those of you that have done the work of direct support know that it's a profession based on relationships, and you have to have obviously positive, uh, healthy relationships, professional relationships with the people you're supporting. But with direct support, because it's such an intimate profession, we have to have a code of ethics. And we're going to talk about that. That's what this webinar is about. That's what our code of ethics is about. And this photograph is a depiction of what looks like a good interaction between Nick and Anthony. But that said, here's the thing. Um, we also know that direct support professionals in their relationships with the people that they're supporting, it can get blurry. Boundaries can get crossed. And it's a tough place to be for direct support professionals sometimes, and knowing what to do in certain situations. And that's exactly what the Code of Ethics is meant to help direct support professionals navigate. Next slide, Joe. Here it is. We believe this very strongly. It's within everything it's baked in the things that we teach and the way in which we even certify direct support professionals at the NADSP. Direct support professionals are helping people every day make decisions. That's what they do. Little decisions about maybe what to have for breakfast, big decisions about maybe, a job they might want to have, a relationship they might want to pursue. But that's the thing. Direct support professionals are there helping people every day make these decisions, big and small. That said, that second sentence there, you can't let your own beliefs as that direct support professional, your religious beliefs, your political beliefs, your, whatever you believe, what you think is right and wrong, you can't let that interfere or influence how you're helping somebody make a decision. That's hard. That's easier said than done, folks. We all know it's hard enough making our own decisions, let alone helping somebody else make a decision. And thirdly, they're understanding using the code of ethics, our code of ethics that we're really so proud of, and we're so excited that we've revised it. Using this, particularly this new revised version of the code of ethics, really will help direct support professionals, and really anybody, but ultimately direct support professionals, help navigate and help prevent you from breaking a professional boundary, which is very easy to do when you're a direct support professional. But the code of ethics stands to help navigate those times. Next slide, Joe. Uh, the code has been around over a quarter of a century. I like saying that as opposed to 45 years, but a quarter of a century. It's been around a long time, and it was created initially back in the early 2000s, and it was created by direct support professionals and people with disabilities and family members. A whole bunch of folks were given the charge of creating a code of ethics for the direct support profession, and that was done. And it was put out there in our field, and it was used to a degree. And it got more and more traction and more importance over the years. 2016, about 10 years ago, we said, we got to look at it. We got to look at the words. We got to update some of the words. A lot of things happen in the course of time, certainly over the course of 25 years. So what happened in 2016, we kind of looked at some of the words, improved some of the language, made it a little more person-centered. But what took place this past year or so, we did a full overhaul, if you will. We looked at the code very critically with subject matter experts. Joe's going to talk about that in a couple seconds here. And what we did, we created and crafted the new version of the NADSP Code of Ethics, and we just released it. And that's what we're doing today, is exploring that. So we have a full revision as of June 2026. Joe, tell us more.
Thanks, John. I just want to kind of give a little bit of clarity on the history of the original Code of Ethics that you talked about that was created a quarter of a century ago. We used a similar process that we used in the revision, where we used, as you mentioned, subject matter experts, validation workshops, creating scenarios. But the time was so different. We needed to we needed to convince the field that a code of ethics was necessary. And you look on the screen here, it's kind of a photo of the preamble of the original Code of Ethics which was really the sales pitch of trying to convince um, providers and government officials and policymakers and leaders in our IDD field that this was necessary. And the ethical dilemmas that DSPs face on a regular basis needed attention. And in this version, we didn't do that. We didn't require a long preamble to convince anybody of the need of a code of ethics. We already know that. And the field has embraced and accepted the code of ethics as one of the foundations of not only NADSP, but a foundation of direct support practice in the United States and Canada and a few other countries as well. As John mentioned, the initial version was published by the University of Minnesota's Institute on Community Integration and NADSP in 2001. And I'm happy to also report a few of the contributors to the original Code of Ethics also were contributors to the revised Code of Ethics in 2026, especially Dr. Amy Hewitt, who led the entire project for the past 18 months. So just in a nutshell, the revision process, it was we established a group of kind of insiders, a lot of NADSP, a few of NADSP staff members, some folks from ICI, a couple of board members, to help us stay on track. We actually also hired a project manager to make sure that we're meeting our objectives, we're meeting our goals, and things are going just the way we planned. We identified subject matter experts to review the old version. We integrated those recommendations from the subject matter experts into a first draft of the revision. And then we had more than 20 virtual focus groups with direct support professionals and frontline supervisors from all around the country, who worked in different service environments, residential programs, day programs, support employment programs, just to get their feedback. And then at our conference in September of 2025 in Buffalo, New York, we held 3 validation workshops. They were 90 minutes each, where we selected, I think, 15 to 20 direct support professionals and frontline supervisors for each validation workshop and went through a lot of ethical scenarios. And they used that version of the draft revised Code of Ethics in their work to guide them through these ethical dilemmas. So we held to a very high academic and professional standard for creating this code of ethics. It wasn't just sitting around a table, batting ideas off of one another. It was done in a very validation type of driven performance process. A few other things that we did is we went back. We wanted to make sure that all of the words were proper and correct, and the reading levels were accessible and in plain language, and I think we've done that. And then lastly, we went back to those subject matter experts with the final version based on the input from DSPs and frontline supervisors, and we came up with this version. When it comes to identifying subject matter experts, of course, we needed to find people with lived disability experience to be participants in this process. And we were very fortunate to have several people with disabilities join us. We had researchers, we had agency training directors, we had NADSP board members, we had researchers, we even had a state DD director. These folks gave us a lot of their time and gave us some excellent feedback, both at the very beginning of the process and at the end of the process. And their work was invaluable. Also, a little bit more on those focus groups. If anybody has ever conducted a focus group, you know what I mean. They are very structured.
Mm.
They ask the very same questions. The numbers of people in these focus groups were small. I don't think we had more than 8 or 9 people in any given focus group. We focused on 3 areas: if and how the code of ethics was used by their employers. And we got some really interesting feedback on that. A couple things. One is many direct support professionals and frontline supervisors were not aware of the code of ethics after 25 years. Some also mentioned that, yes, their organization used it, but they also modified it a little bit to fit their culture or their strategic plan. And you just can't do that with a code of ethics. Um, we focused on ethical dilemmas that DSPs face and gaps and changes between the original and that draft version at the time. The feedback that we got was recorded and transcribed and used to create that second version of the revised code of ethics. And then again, back to these validation focus groups, they were very intense. They were rich with feedback, very engaging. We had DSPs who wanted to be there, frontline supervisors who wanted to be there, who understood the ethical scenarios that were before them, who knew how to use the code of ethics to address those ethical scenarios that we used. The data from those sessions created the final version of the NADSP's Code of Ethics that we present to you today. After that, our friends at ICI went back to make sure that the reading level was clear. The NADSP team reviewed for layout, and we agreed that we were going to lay out this version of the Code of Ethics in alphabetical order. There remains 9 tenets. There was 9 tenets in the original Code of Ethics. There's 9 today. But we wanted to make sure that people understood that there's no one tenet that is more important than another. They're all important equally. So we decided to use them and put them in alphabetical order. So you trainers out there understand that there is no one tenet that is more important than another. Lastly, in January of this year, we brought the final draft to the NADSP's board of directors. There was very rich and robust discussion around it. There was a motion and adoption for approval. So as of January 22nd, this version of the Code of Ethics was adopted by the NADSP's board of directors. We agreed that this was something that needed a lot of attention on our website. There's a lot of old Code of Ethics stuff out there. So we needed to scrub that from our website, from our YouTube channel, from all of our resources that are internal to us. And that took us some time. So we then in April identified or notified organizations who use our certification program, the eBadge Academy, our membership, some partners. We did a soft launch a couple of months ago. And just a couple of weeks ago, on June 9th, 2026, we launched and released the text of this Code of Ethics. Some key changes that you're going to see, just kind of the little commercial here. The old Code of Ethics spoke to the field. As I mentioned, we wanted to convince the field that it was necessary. This revised version of the Code of Ethics speaks to direct support professionals. It speaks to them directly. This is yours, nobody else's. You need to adopt this. We focused on direct support professionals, and you'll see not only direct support professionals' ethical responsibilities, but their rights and to make sure that they are healthy and responsible to their profession. As I mentioned, the reading level is more accessible. Things have changed over the last 25 years. Social media is one. Even where people with disabilities live and work and socialize is different 25 years later. So we had to update a lot of different areas of the Code of Ethics. Um, you'll see that this Code of Ethics is about partnership, partnering with people with disabilities and helping them drive their own support systems and their own lives in partnership. The tenets, as I mentioned, are listed alphabetically, and there are fewer ethical statements. The code has as 9 tenets, and there's a general statement. And then under that general statement, there are what we call ethical statements that provides you with a whole lot more information, but a lot more things to think about and consider as you provide direct support work in your jobs and careers. John, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. That's really important. I think very important to get the setup and why this is not just something we sat around writing up one weekend. No, man, this is really a critical piece for every direct support professional to understand and know exists. Here it is, the moment you've been waiting for, hopefully. If you look on the right side of the screen, you're going to see the new kind of revised tenets of the code, and the former original code of ethics is to the left there. You're going to see similarities. You're going to see kind of some things that are exactly the same and some things that are completely different. The purpose of this webinar today is to really take some time and dive into the code of ethics a little bit more deeply than just looking at the tenets of the code. These are headlines, right? These are 9 of pieces of the code of ethics that when we look at each of these, and as Joe said, when we look at each of the definition of each of these statements, and then we look at the ethical statements, that becomes what direct support professionals need to use during those moments where they need direction beyond a supervisor, beyond what their own intuition might say. This is the code of ethics for direct support professionals. So just a couple of highlights here. You'll see on the left side, one of the original tenets was integrity and responsibility. That kind of transformed into what you see on the left side. I think it's the 6th one down there: professionalism, accountability, and growth. They're very similar in nature in terms of what the meaning was behind those tenets. But what we're going to see is what Joe indicated, a direct statement to direct support professionals, what it is that is kind of expected of you in your professional capacity. It really has not much to do necessarily with your with people you're supporting. It's about you as a professional, and it's explicit in this new code of ethics, in this revised code of ethics. One other thing that has also changed is justice, fairness, and equity. We also added justice, fairness, equity, added inclusion to that. There is tremendous controversy politically and socially and culturally around this thing called diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is what direct support professionals are involved in a professional capacity every day. They are out there promoting diversity. That's part of their role. They're promoting justice and fairness for people with disabilities who still oftentimes face discrimination. And of course, inclusion and integration. It's something we've fought for years and still fight, so that people with developmental, intellectual, physical, mental disabilities can be part of the fabric of their communities. So I could go on all day about the nature of what has been revised. Joe, next slide. And here it is. This is in its full glory. And I say that, I'm not joking. This is glorious, because when you look at this in the context of what direct support professionals do every day, when you look at these 9 components of ethical expectation, what you're looking at is what we hope all direct support professionals will strive to do. And that's what it is. This is an ideal. We don't live in utopia. We don't live in perfection, but we want to always strive for the best possible practice that we can do as direct support professionals. And what the Code of Ethics is intended to do is be a, a resource, a reinforcement, and in fact, what the profession, what people with disabilities, what family members, what our field expects from the behavior, attitudes, and values of the profession of direct support. So, what we're going to do, we're going to take just a moment and go through each one just briefly, just to give you a flavor, a taste. We invite you all to download the code and know the code. What we want to do is give you just a what we hope is an appetizer for this revised code of ethics. Let's start. Let's do it, Joe. Let's go through each one.
We will. I just want to add one thing to reassure direct
Sure.
support professionals who might be watching this that, these are they're heavy, right? They are powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't expect you to memorize these. We don't expect you to use these, as written, as your written rules.
Right.
As John mentioned, these are aspirational. These are your roadmap when you're lost. And I was a direct support professional, and I was lost often. And I was a direct support professional before we even had a code of ethics. And I wish that I had something that I could refer to when there was these gray areas where I didn't know what was right or wrong, and I had to use my judgment. And that's a leap of faith. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of share the main tenet of each of these nine codes and give you a little bit of information. We're going to break one of them down and go through them piece by piece with you, and you'll see in a moment. So, John, go ahead.
Yep, here we go. Once again, they happen to be in alphabetical order. Not one tenet is more important than another. It's a balance act. We'll talk about that at the very end. And it's about using these codes when you feel as though you need that help when you're lost. So here we go. Advocacy. As a direct support professional, and all the tenets begin with that, as a direct support professional, I will advocate with the people I support for justice, equity, inclusion, and belonging in their communities. When you unpack that, when you unpack each of these, but when you unpack this one, there's a lot to that, right? Justice and equity, that deals with very high level things, as Joe said. This is high level stuff. Doesn't mean you're out there, being a lawyer for the people you're supporting. That's not the point. The point is understanding that people with disabilities still face things that are discriminatory, sometimes illegal, right? Whether it's a barrier to access to a public building, or if it's discrimination based on name calling, whatever it might be, direct support professionals are right there, and they need to advocate with people, not for people, advocate with people so that justice can prevail, so that equity can happen. Inclusion and belonging, that's a direct support professionals. That's one of their mainstays, is helping people with disabilities access and be part of their communities, whatever community that is, that might be their community where they live, community where they play, the community where they worship. So advocacy. Go next.
Dan, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right. So the next tenet is confidentiality and privacy. As a direct support professional, I will promote, protect, and respect the confidentiality of the people I support. And if you're working as a direct support professional in the United States, you've probably had a HIPAA training. If you're in a school setting, you might have had a FERPA training. And that's important. You should know what the law requires of you as a direct support professional, but you should also know what your ethical responsibilities are, because your ethical responsibilities in this area might go even beyond what's required of you by the law.
Thanks, Dan. I'll take the next one. Justice, fairness, equity, and inclusion. As a direct support professional, I will advocate for and promote justice, fairness, equity, and inclusion for the people that I support. And I think this one's interesting because I think it dovetails really nicely with advocacy, when advocating with. But when you are out doing your work in the community, which by the way, the community is your office, you're going to notice um, discrimination. You're going to
Mhm.
see inequities for people with disabilities. You're going to see people being excluded from activities or groups and things like that. And part of your responsibility is to call attention to that. And I think as as an advocate, we're all advocates. As an advocate, to include the people that you support, to also see this inequity, discrimination, and to do something about it. John, back to you.
Great. Uh, Here it is. I have a love-hate relationship with this notion of person-centered and that phrase person-centered support, person-centered planning, person-centered. What does that mean? I think it's over the years, I think it's gotten I think it's lost its meaning. I really believe with this code of ethics, we've brought the meaning back to it, especially for direct support professionals. So person-centered supports, as a direct support professional, I will work in partnership with the people I support, approaching their goals and their aspirations with flexibility, curiosity, creativity, and commitment. And I know there's a little alliteration there. That's maybe it was done on purpose. I don't know. What matters though, and I think what this embraces, I think, what a lot of direct support professionals do every day. And what this does, this gives you an official charge. This gives you an official allowance. Get creative. Work in partnership with the people you support to explore what they want to do in life. Sometimes being person centered might mean hopping into advocacy, into justice, fairness, and inclusion. Sometimes even policies of your organization can kind of limit being person centered, and that becomes your job, your role to respectfully, appropriately, and using the code of ethics. Sometimes, work with the people you're supporting so that they can achieve what they want to achieve in life. That's what it's about. But you also have to balance the other parts of the code, as you're going to see with the next piece of the code of ethics. Sure.
This is
Or Dan?
interesting. In the old code, the original code, this statement said, as a direct support professional, my first allegiance is to the person that I support. All activities and functions that I perform flow from this allegiance. It may not be written here, John and Dan, and I don't know if you agree with this, but that statement still holds. Your first allegiance is to the people that you support. Um, Dan, I think you got the next one.
I've got the next one, yes. It's physical and emotional well being. As a direct support professional, I will promote the emotional, physical, spiritual, and personal well being of the people I support. I will respect their autonomy while ensuring safety and reducing harm. So, a couple of things here. First of all, well being is a broad umbrella. It's not just about people's physical health and safety, it's about helping
Yep.
people feel safe and included as well. Their emotional, their physical, their spiritual, their personal well being. The other thing is that that tug between respecting people's autonomy and ensuring their safety and reducing the risk of harm. Every direct support professional out there has had a moment where someone wants an extra slice of cake or wants to eat a big juicy bacon cheeseburger when maybe that's not the best thing for their diet.
Yep.
Navigating those moments and that decision making process with the person is a huge part of direct support professional practice.
I'm sorry, you guys, but I always need to add a thought because I control the screen. I'm an e-badge reviewer, and I
Yeah.
reviewed a badge recently that was a DSP was supporting somebody with a restriction,
Yep.
and the DSP was trying to help this person advocate to go beyond this restriction, and that is a profound thing for a direct support professional to do, helping somebody whose rights are being restricted. Using this as a compass is going to be
Hmm.
so helpful to DSPs um, in those areas where I understand there are plans in place to help people be safe, and there's restrictions in place to help people be safe. But when a person is saying, but wait a minute, I want an opportunity here to show you that I'm good. A DSP is going to be put in a position where you're going to partner with that person. And that's where this comes in. Okay, this is the one we're going to break down, gentlemen. Professionalism, accountability, and growth. It used to be integrity and responsibility in the old code. As a direct support professional, I will support people in leading the lives they choose. I will support, or I will build strong partnerships with them, their families, support networks, other professionals, and the community. I recognize that these partners rely on me to bring my best self to this profession and to be accountable for my actions. And then here are the tenets. As a direct support professional, I will understand, appreciate, and interact effectively with people from different cultural backgrounds through learning, self-reflection, and adapting my behavior to connect respectfully with others. John?
Well, reflect on my own values, my own biases, and recognize how they may influence my professional decisions. Jan?
Acknowledge my limitations and seek guidance from people I support, colleagues, supervisors, or mentors when needed.
I will take responsibility for my decisions and actions and learn from my mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we should be doing that in our work and outside of our work.
Oh man, look, man, we could spend a whole hour on this one. Promote accountability among coworkers. Listen to this one. Promote accountability among coworkers and others involved in the lives of the people I support. Oh my goodness, you work in teams, and they can be challenging. Dan?
Be transparent and honest in all communication.
I will lead by example, modeling ethical behavior for coworkers, the individual I support, and the community. John?
Pursue. This is my. Pursue lifelong learning, professional development, and collaboration to strengthen my knowledge and skills. So critical. Every professional needs to do that.
Dan?
Maintain my physical, mental, and emotional well-being to best support others.
So I think that this tenet really shows how the Code of Ethics, the evolution of the Code of Ethics, it really does, and how this Code of Ethics speaks directly to the direct support workforce. And these, as I mentioned, these are heavy. These are very strong ethical principles because you know what? The direct support professional job requires it. It is easy to be unethical. And sometimes we hear direct support professionals often tell us that they're just a direct support professional, right? And I always correct that. You're not just a direct support professional. It's probably the most important job in your organization. And therefore, we have an ethical duty to maintain our physical, mental, and emotional well-being, but also all of these other things when we're working as a DSP. What we didn't mention, each of the 9 tenets have those ethical statements, but we also created scenarios. And the scenarios, and this one I'm not going to read it to you. You can look at it later, use it in training, but it shows exemplary direct support practice. And in this case, Samantha really does go to the full extent possible for being a direct support professional in her own accountability and growth and learning what Marcus needs and how to support Marcus better. We created these for you, and John, you're a trainer. I think your breed knows hundreds of these different examples, can come up with these examples. But these examples are also good to be used in role plays, right, John?
Sure. And I think here's the thing, you're not at a loss as a trainer or as a manager or even as a direct support professional with stories, about what you encountered. Usually it's after the fact, but you can take these things respectfully, of course, whether it's this scenario or real situations, and use them to kind of unpack what do we do in the future to be ethical. It's really that's how you that's how you work at a code of ethics. You have to do it. And good luck. It's not easy, but it's so critical.
We got a couple more. We're not done yet. John,
No.
relationships and social
Woo.
role.
Here we go. Important. Um, as a direct support professional, I will assist the people I support in developing and maintaining relationships and social roles that matter to them. That's where we expanded the former code of ethics. The older code of ethics was about relationships, and I will help people build and maintain relationships. That's great. That's important. But also, we added to that with the advice from all of our subject matter experts and what we've seen in the last 25 years. People with disabilities often identify first and foremost with their disability. We don't ever want to deny that. No, of course. To deny somebody's disability that's inappropriate. That's unethical. But people are more than just experiencing life with a disability. They have social roles, and usually through the relationships they have, whether it's with their family, whether it's with their employer or colleagues, in their church, their mosque, their temple, wherever, their bowling league, you have a role. You have a role. You're the note taker for the club. You're the treasurer for the self advocacy group that you might be belong to. And here's the thing: direct support professionals need to help foster these relationships and have people really embrace their role in society, because that's where it's at. That's where it's at. That's part of justice, inclusion, and all the wonderful things we're talking about here. So, relationships and social roles. Next, Dan.
Respect. As a direct support professional, I will respect the dignity, humanity, and uniqueness of the people I support. I will recognize that they have full lives and histories from before I started supporting them, and I will meet them where they are. As a direct support professional, you never want to come into someone's life and try to take over. You never want to assume that you know what's best for them. You want to get to know them and try to understand where they've come from, where they're at, and how you can best support them at this point in their life.
And lastly, self-determination and choice. As a direct support professional, I will honor and assist. I love that. I will honor and assist the people I support to make choices and direct their lives to the fullest extent possible and within the context of their culture and uniqueness.
Mm.
Because everybody is different. Everybody has different backgrounds. Everybody has different belief systems. And we will honor that. And we will help them make decisions. And we will learn how human decision-making processes work and helping people make informed decisions. And that's a big part of self-determination and choice. So know the code. Know the code. This is going to be our graphic for the next few years, to know the code. We, NADSP on our website will have a store where you can purchase Code of Ethics brochures in bulk. Folding wallet cards. I have wallet cards and I give them away. You can buy them in bulk. We have posters of Know the Code that you can purchase, I think in batches of 10. But you can use these and share these with your DSPs. John, the other thing that we haven't talked about, the Code of Ethics is one thing. And a piece that goes along with it that you were very involved with was this practice guidelines and guidebook. Can you share just quickly about what the guidelines and guidebook is? John? Well, I will. The NAD,
Hold on, hold on, hold on. My internet is shaky here. I'm so sorry.
can
Are
you
you
share a
there?
little bit about the guidebook, John?
I sure can. Can you hear me, Joe? Can you hear me,
Yes.
Dan?
Yeah, go, John.
Check, check. Okay. Sorry about this. We're in this is 2026 and the internet. Guidebook, very critical, very important because it's something we didn't have before. And if you look at other professions and their codes of ethics, what is this often a part of the code? They have the code, but then they also have resources, particularly things called guidebooks that go deeper. It's like we just went through each of the tenets really briefly. The guidebook takes it even further. Think about a tree, and the tree is beautiful, and it's got leaves and fruit, but then it also has roots. Trees have roots, and the guidebook goes into the roots of the code of ethics and gives you really practical, almost directive ways. Not, it will give you answers, but it will give you even further assistance in how to navigate these situations where you're using the code of ethics or where you need to use the code of ethics. Once again, it's going to be a free resource. It's going to be something that we want direct support professionals not to walk around with the guidebook in your back pocket. That's not the point. The point is to use it in supervision, use it at team meetings, use it with the people you're supporting when you're struggling in partnership with them about a situation. You can go to this guidebook and you will see it will help you navigate these tricky, sticky, difficult situations. So we're looking forward to how you use this guidebook. Joe.
In addition to the guidebook, we have other
Oh,
resources
yep.
available for our friends out there. Can you talk about briefly the videos and the written examples and the blogs that we're going to be doing in the future?
Sure thing, Joe. We knew that particularly in 2026, we're a society that needs visual often if we use our eyes. We're a society that needs sound bites. That's the reality. But we also wanted to make something that was useful beyond something written. And what we did, we did it before, but we really improved it with a training video. But it's really actually a series of videos that takes each one of the tenets of the code and takes about 4 to 5 minutes, really brief, and explains the code and then gives some. Usually, it's a testimony or a story from a person with a disability or a direct support professional. And these videos are meant once again for you to use whether you're a trainer, whether you're a manager, whether you're a direct support professional, to use the videos to once again reinforce the spirit of whatever part of the code you're looking at. We're going to have every month a blog, which is going to be a dive deeper into each of the tenets. And then ultimately, we want to make sure that as you're taking this this code of ethics and using it, these I think, but the best way, I said it before, the best way to kind of understand ethics is executing it, doing it, being ethical. But how do you do that if you're not in the situation to actually apply the code? Well, using some examples, some scenarios, role play, and using ethical scenarios, whether again, it's in supervision, doing role plays with the people you support, family members, whatever. These we want you to embrace this code. It's not something you're going to read and put away. And we'll talk about that in a second. It's got to be something you use. It's going to be living and breathing for you. That's our intention. Joe.
So, a final call to action and some next steps, just kind of in summary. We want organizations, we want provider associations, we want advocacy groups, we want family groups, we want states to endorse the NADSP's Code of Ethics. And we're going to have something on our website shortly that allows you to click a button and say that your organization endorses it. As I mentioned, we want direct support professionals to adopt it. It's yours. It's your profession. It's your code of ethics. You need to adopt it and use it. This has been translated into Spanish. It is a document with a lot of values written language in it. It is not easy to translate into languages. So we're starting with Spanish. Maybe we'll do more in the future. We want you to download the practice guidelines and guidebook that John just shared with you. You cannot change this code of ethics, nor would you ever change the Hippocratic Oath or the social workers code of ethics. You can't change it. You can endorse it, but this cannot be modified or changed or fit into another code that your organization uses. It is an aspirational resource to guide DSPs in their tricky work. It's not meant for DSPs to be all of these things. It's meant to guide you. It is never a read and sign. Don't even think about reading it and signing it and putting it in your personnel file. It should not be punitive. This is a resource. It's a tool. It's a positive way to develop your staff. It helps your organization build a healthy culture that appreciates the ethical responsibilities of your direct support professionals. Use the code to create and develop solutions for those ethical dilemmas in our industry. And you can take a picture of that and it takes you right to our code. Dan, we've got 30,000 direct support professionals in the eBadge Academy today. John's reviewing badges, I'm reviewing badges, you're reviewing badges. And a lot of the second prompts in the eBadge Academy ask DSPs to be reflective on the code of ethics. How are we going to use the new code of ethics in the eBadge Academy?
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone can tell this is sort of a celebratory moment for NADSP. We've put a lot of work into this code. We're very excited to put it out to the field and out to the public. Change can also bring some anxiety, and we know there's some anxiety among the DSPs in the eBadge Academy about, they've gotten so used to the old code. They've been reflecting on the old code and writing about the old code. Sometimes people may have testimonials they've written that reference the old code they haven't uploaded to us yet. We're going to have a window that'll go till July 9th, 2026, where we will continue to accept references to the old code of ethics in testimonials submitted to the eBadge Academy. After July 9th, we're going to require that we're all switched over to the new code of ethics. So the shift won't be as dramatic as I think some are worried about. Chances are, if your professional practice, if the work you're writing about in your testimonial was ethical under the old code, it's probably ethical under the new code as well. It's just a matter of using the new names of the tenants. If you're quoting language from the code in your response, making sure you're quoting from the new code and not the old code. But for the most part, the spirit of the code has not changed. So give it a little time to make that transition, but we think it'll be a transition that will go smoothly for DSPs.
Thank you, Dan. And I also want to mention that all of our dozens and dozens of eBadge reviewers have been trained in the new code of ethics. So just to close things up, I want to thank the folks from our Code of Ethics revision work group, specifically Tony Thomas, who was the former executive director of an organization in Cleveland, Ohio, who was part of the original team that created the Code of Ethics. It was his idea. We knew that we needed to do it, but the urgency came from Tony. A Code of Ethics needs to be contemporary and relevant to the work, and our old code was not. I also want to thank Dr. Amy Hewitt, who gave us the academic standards and professional standards to follow to make sure that these were valid. And Amy did the lion's share of that work. Project manager, Dr. Krista McGill, kept us all on track. And then finally, our colleagues at ICI, Jerry Smith, who did the video work, which is truly, truly exemplary, by the way. And Connie Burkhart, who did the graphics and the branding of the whole new code. I want to thank all of these people because it was 18 months of a whole lot of work and important work. If you want to reach out to us, you can go on the YouTube site to check out those videos. Our Facebook page is pretty active, of course. You can check out our website. Our names and email addresses are on there. John, Dan, thank you both for your time this morning and your contributions to the revised Code of Ethics, and to all of you out there. Um, Thank you for your time. Thank you for embracing this and endorsing this and sharing this and making this a really important part in our effort to help people with disabilities live and thrive and contribute into their communities. Thanks so much.